taste tests, hands-on classroom activities related to agriculture or food, processing local food, and building relationships with and systemic change. Championed in 2006 by the late Vermont Representative Rosa McLaughlin, the grant program aims to promote healthy eating, increase the use of local food usage in schools and early care, work with partners to connect farm to school with educational goals, support the overall farm to institution supply chain, increase student participation in child nutrition programs, and enhance food programs in schools and early care facilities. So again, this goes over some of the goals of the grant program, just in case I haven't said it enough. These are directly from the Rosa McLaughlin Farm to School Act, which was updated in 2017. So again, today we'll be talking about the two different farm to school grant opportunities that are open right now. We'll be covering the Farm to School and Farm to Care Infrastructure Grant and the Farm to School and Farm to Early Care Child Nutrition Grant. In short, we call them the Infrastructure Grants and Child Nutrition Grants. The infrastructure grants are $1,000 grants to purchase infrastructure to improve early care food programs. And for K through 12 schools, the funding can be used to purchase a milk cooler. We will award up to 23 grants with this particular opportunity, and we'll go into more detail in a moment regarding what types of infrastructure might be eligible for this opportunity for the early care community. The other grant we'll be covering today are the Farm to School and Early Care Child Nutrition Grant. These are $15,000 grants for farm to school projects. Each grantee will get technical assistance free of charge. The funding of $15,000 can be used to pay for activities like gardening, farm visits, the procurement of local food, local procurement planning, professional development for child nutrition staff or educators, and general professional development for educators, and infrastructure planning and infrastructure purchases that can increase the use of local food. You can find the request for applications on our Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets website, where you will find the link to the applications. It is important that you read through the requests for applications very carefully, as there's a lot of useful information, including an appendix with handy definitions of common farm-to-school terms. Always remember, though, you must apply online through our grant management system called WebGrants. The link to WebGrants is at the bottom of this slide, but not to worry, it's also throughout our request for applications. We have also included the link for WebGrants here, and we'll be talking a bit about WebGrants throughout this presentation. Instructions on how to use WebGrants can be found in our comprehensive request for applications. It's a very handy user guide, and that, again, is located on our Vermont Farm to School grant website. All applications, again, must be submitted through WebGrants by noon, November 14th, 2018. Paper or emailed applications will not be accepted. So we do recommend that you log into WebGrants and register as soon as possible. so that you don't run into issues at the last minute. Again, don't wait until the deadline for the application to submit your application. You can work on and submit your application ahead of time, and you can work within web grants as you develop your application before you submit it. So we'll be talking about the general application timeline for all grant opportunities. Again, the grants or the applications will be due Tuesday, November 14th, 2018 by noon. Following the application due date, and again, remember to start the submission process early in case you run into issues using web grants. So following the due date, our multi-stakeholder review team will score and review the applications. We will be making decisions by December 20th as our goal. And at that time, we hope to notify applicants the status of their application. Programs who are awarded grants will receive funding in the month of January 2019. All grantees are required to have at least one representative for Farm to School Awareness Day at the State House on February 6, 2019, 4 to 6 p.m. to officially accept your grant award in the State House cafeteria. The ceremony includes special guest speakers, Agency of Agriculture Secretary, the Secretary of Education, the Commissioner of Health, and leadership from the Vermont Farm to School Network, legislators, and past grantees. We'll also have a set of tables from many partners and former grantees for you to learn about from. Since this is also an occasion for learning and building your farm to school program, mileage reimbursement for attending the award ceremony and any associated travel costs can be charged to the grant. It is an acceptable use of funds. So now for the next several slides, we're going to narrow our focus onto the Farm to School and Farm to Early Care Infrastructure Grant. These are our $1,000 grants focused on infrastructure to support food programs. This grant opportunity consists of two types, depending on who you are. For K through 12 schools, this opportunity, formerly known as the Milk Cooler Sponsorship Program, is only open to schools in need of a new milk cooler. For early care providers, this grant opportunity is for any infrastructure that can support the meal program's use of fresh, local, and/or farm to early care programming. We're going to do an overview of the infrastructure grants. As I mentioned, for early care providers, these grants are for any infrastructure to improve the food program. Acceptable purchases include items that strengthen the program's farm to early care program or activities, and the meals they serve to children in their care. Examples of purchases include kitchen equipment, cooking utensils, child-friendly kitchen utensils to involve children in meal prep, diningware to allow the program to serve family-style meals, improvement on kitchen space and storage, and other things related to the kitchen. Garden infrastructure is an acceptable expense, but it must be limited to a $100 purchase per grant. Please keep in mind that with any of these grant opportunities, we are looking to maximize the benefits of farm to school and early care programming. Additionally, if you're a smaller provider and $1,000 seems like it's too much, consider partnering with another or several smaller providers in your area so you can spend all of the funds. You can purchase your own infrastructure, but you can partner on other things like farmer relationships or farm visits, or developing best practices around farm to early care and menu planning. Wondering what an early care provider can buy for this grant? Do you need some more suggestions? In the past year, we've learned a lot about what early care providers can spend their funding on. So I thought I'd provide some examples of some of the real uses of our funding over the past year from early care providers. We had a provider who purchased a freezer so that she could store pre-made, locally sourced dishes for future use. We had another provider who purchased a food processor for expanded use of local foods in the kitchen. We had a provider that purchased supplies to make her dining room color and design more trauma-informed. And a different provider purchased a refrigerator to increase her ability to source fresh and local food. And again, for those who would like to incorporate family-style meal prep and also service, we did see a provider that purchased plates and flatware to do this. Now, these are only a few different suggestions, so we recommend you use these suggestions, but definitely keep your mind open to the many different ways that you can use that funding. So for K through 12 schools, again, these grants only can be used to reimburse purchases of a milk cooler. The funding for this category comes right from our dairy farmers through the Dairy Checkoff program. Schools can use the funding to buy coolers to store any kind of milk containers. So if they're interested in getting a cooler that stores cartons or gallon bottles, they can certainly use this grant for that, as well as those who are interested in purchasing coolers that serve bulk milk. If you are thinking about moving away from cartons and moving towards a bulk milk cooler, we recommend you review our milk cooler decision-making guide on the Vermont Agency of Ag Farm to School website to help inform your decision. There are many considerations in this kind of a decision, including labor, cost, storage, and other logistics. And our guide can certainly help in making those decisions. Who's eligible for applying for our infrastructure grants? For early care providers, it's any registered or licensed child care provider based in Vermont. For the K through 12 opportunity for milk coolers, it's any Vermont-based K through 12 school. For infrastructure funding, again, there will be 23 grants awarded, there is a typo there, at $1,000 each for the reimbursement of purchases. No partial funding will be awarded, so expect to spend all of your grant funding. If you don't think that you can spend the full $1,000 if you're an early care provider, again, think about how you can partner with other providers to spend down that money. And again, these grant funds come from Vermont dairy farmers, legislative appropriation, and a private funder. So the timeline for the infrastructure grants, we will have applications due on November 14th. We will hope to notify grant applicants of the status of their application by December 20th, 2018. And then we will get grant agreements signed by January 2019. So that means that you could potentially be reimbursed in January, as early as January, for your purchase. But you will have between January and December of 2019 to make your purchases and submit your reimbursement material. And again, if you are granted, if you're awarded a grant, for